analog film teaches you acceptance. You just accept what's on the frame a lot of the time. It's a moment in time. It was your choices in that moment. And there is a certain beauty to it, whether you use it or not. I think that teaches me I think you have to keep trying things. I also think you really need to try things with friends. I think community and collaboration really helps. It's just motivating, and you learn from doing, but you learn from sharing.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here in Glazes Bay on the Taluna River, the Huon River, in the beautiful Huon Valley of Tasmania. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this place because it's incredibly special. And I'd just like to thank my host, Ursula Woods, film artist and cinematographer. Thanks for inviting me along.
You're very welcome, Tim. Welcome to my home.
Thanks, Ursula.
It's lovely to have you here.
Yeah, it's a real treat for me as a photographer and someone dipping their toe, particularly in film-based, working.
Analog practices?
Yeah, analog practices. Yeah. So, thanks for showing me your darkroom.
Oh my God, I love my darkroom.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, it's weirdly probably my favorite room in the house.
Yeah.
It's very small. It's like a small tool shed. Actually, we had tools in there for years. And I looked at it and I thought that would make a great darkroom. Can I just have that little space? So it's got a sink. It's got a double sink, and it's got a dryer. My husband made the dryer for me. It's just like a big barrel that I can wrap the film around on the wall that turns. And I have all my chemistry in there and some buckets and jars of all sorts of things. I've got my winders, film stock. I actually have 2 dark rooms, so I don't want to make anyone very jealous out there. They're 2 tiny little spaces, but one is for dry loading tanks, data wrangling, I like to call it because it's funny, but it's just where I'm winding up films onto different reels and sorting out what I've shot. So I have a dry dark room, and that's quite small. And I keep all my film in there that I haven't exposed yet. And I sort a lot of things in there. And then next door, I have the wet dark room, and that has the sink and the chemicals. And I like to keep them separate because one day I would actually really like to do to print my own, to do a lot of more printing and like optical effects. And I think I can do that in the dry dark room with using a projector as a printer. But that's kind of a lifelong goal. I'm a slow learner.
Okay. But one thing, I mean, so we met one day on the beach.
We did.
You were making a film for Second Echo Ensemble, and I was tagging along as a board member.
Yeah.
And you were shooting on film cameras.
Yeah, I have a few.
And they also they some of them you were rotating them because I think what you've described there is a lot of people at these times wouldn't really understand what's involved in making film. I mean, we don't need to get into the technical aspects. I really want to.
I know, I go down a rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. We're surrounded by your film equipment here. I'm looking enviously at your Bolex H16. I have one at the other end of Tasmania, but it's not that model.
But
that's anyway,
a good model. I think it's the Rex 4 or 5. I'm pretty bad at knowing the models, but I'm pretty sure it's a 4.
So I am a total gear nerd, so let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
But what I think what you're illustrating for us is just how much there's the work and the craft of that goes into making film, but also the art. You began telling us so and how you can explore that in a darkroom. And now we'll come back to that.
Magic. It's magic.
Because what I want to know is what got you into making film?
All this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I had another career in education, but I was kind of the person who always had a guitar in their hand or a camera. I was really annoying around Christmas time, running events and things like that. I think I tried out all my ideas on the kids. I've always been creative.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of a very large family, and we all played music, and we were all in the arts.
Yeah.
My parents, you know, my dad never really intended that, although he taught us all piano. He was a career guidance counselor and thought that we should not get into art because, you know, we'd never make any money. And pretty much all of us are artists.
Yeah.
But it's sort of his fault because
Yeah.
he was such an artist himself, as in he was a brilliant piano player. And he loved, we'd go to the opera and things like this. We listened to records, or we were very encouraged in the arts. I did a lot of dancing. He took great photos, my dad. We always had these slide nights, and they are kind of burned into my brain as some of the best nights as a kid.
Yeah.
And so we'd all get together and project these slides on the wall and look at all my dad's photos. And you know, he'd traveled the world before he had kids, and he had photos of like elephants in Africa, and you know, he'd been to Mount Fuji and he'd climbed Kilimanjaro. So I loved his photos so much. So anyway, trying to cut this down, I come from a very artistic family.
Yeah.
And got into teaching. I've always played music for years, and yeah, I've been painting for a lot of years, like pretty badly painting. Lots of the paintings that you can see here, Tim, I've done really.
Okay.
And after many years working and painting on weekends and things like that, I was living in Melbourne and I was doing painting courses on weekends at BCA. And one of my painting teachers said, "Have you ever considered studying art here?" And I was like, "I wish."
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, I looked into it and applied and got into a graduate course in visual art. And it was there that I picked up the camera. I mean, I'd made a few funny, silly skits, but I picked it up as some to make a bit of art, actually. Yep. And I thought, well, that's easier than painting. Now, whether I still believe that or not is yet to be, you know, decided. But since that actual class and that I'll never forget, I did this project. I kind of haven't stopped shooting since then. And that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm late to the party. But I'm completely obsessed.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, I went on to make music videos for my partner and his friends because they're all musicians. And I just started making stuff all the time just for fun. So I was working digitally for years. I think I was in the Brisbane Hotel or some kind of random place in Hobart having a drink. And I saw this poster in the bathroom, and it was like workshop in moving image 16 millimeter. And that was with Ilana Schneider, who's an amazing photographer.
Yes, I know Ilana.
And film artist in her own right. And I went along to that workshop, and that's where I met Richard and Diana of the Artist Film Workshop. And I had an incredible weekend. And yeah, the rest is history. I started working and using analog film. And so I used both.
Yes.
Analog and digital. But yeah, the roads started splitting further apart then.
Okay, so you mean between your art practice and the more commercial work?
Yeah.
Music videos?
Yeah. I kind of, you know, when you spend time with Richard Toohey and Diana Barry, and you know, they're completely experimental filmmakers.
Yeah.
And it's very inspiring. They make incredible work, and that collective that I'm now part of.
Yes.
So, and that's like a lifelong process of experimentation. It is quite technical as well. The whole darkroom setup, being really good at the chemical processing, manipulating the image in different ways. But while I was enjoying that, I was also getting much better at being a cinematographer and working in more of a, I suppose, screen industry kind of. I was getting a lot of, I suppose, local businesses and small, like commercial work like that. And then bigger things, more like film industry, TV, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, I mean, something that interests me is when you do have, so does I'll just cut straight to the question, which is, so do you need to do the film industry stuff to sustain your art practice? What's the balance between the two? How does that work for you?
Well, actually, I totally adore both.
Yeah.
Separately and together. Like I dream of, shooting films like feature length. But I also dream of making moving image works of grand scale in a gallery space that probably are extremely abstract,
Yeah.
And yes, I do one to sustain the other. But last year, I had my biggest year of crossover where I got the bigger jobs because of my experimental practice.
Yes.
And that was a very good year because, I was given the chance to explore and improve on the job, when the pressure was on.
Yeah.
You have to deliver. Whereas before those kind of jobs, I shoot analog to escape the end result.
I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
And I enjoy that approach. I just do it for fun.
Yeah.
It's just for me. I have some weird little ideas I get to try, and no one has to see it but me.
But
But then if somebody wants that, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, crap, I better get this exposure. I better do this double exposure properly, or, suddenly you start to worry about the end result more. And especially in the dark room.
Yep.
Time and temperature is so crucial. Whereas for myself, sometimes I'm processing a bucket to see what it might look like. But once you're doing that for, a massive film production company, well, you have to deliver what they want.
So. Yeah. That's an interesting perspective, because I thought what we were going to talk about was how once you can find a way to get paid to do the thing you love, but no, the pressure mounts, and I certainly feel that with making the podcast, and I've just recently been commissioned to make a film, and I'm cool. So whilst but the project I was telling you before about, my Tales of Precarity project, was a research project in London, where I was going out every day and shooting, making people's portraits and interviewing them, coming back into my darkroom, and it was fun.
Yeah.
But if I did that for more than 6 weeks at a time, I would have burnt out.
Yeah, it's quite stressful.
And so so I think it's been 3 or 4 months since I first approached you to come on the podcast, and that's cool. But it's because you're so busy.
I am.
So how do you how does it work for you, Ursula? Do you have like a routine, a schedule that you stick to? Or
I wish I had a routine.
Yeah.
No, it's different every day. But I kind of love that too. I mean, obviously, working in education, you actually know, when your holidays are going to be or something for years. And to be honest, I was looking for the adventure. I was looking for the different every day.
Yeah.
I'm not after a routine. But how does it work for me? I don't know. At the moment, you've kind of caught me at a time where I'm on quite a high frequency. The emails are just stocking up. There's things on the horizon. I was, processing till midnight last night, I was back up this morning. I have to finish something by lunchtime. I don't know. You've caught me at a time when it's all sort of happening.
Yeah.
Now, that is quite normal for me. But then there'll also be times, like, say, between Christmas and New Year's, a little bit around then, there's just nothing on, and that's great because you get to have a bit of a break. But like every artist or sole trader or person out there, as soon as the work stops, you're like, oh my God, when am I going to get paid next? Or what am I going to do? You start having the panic, But actually, how it works for me is I'm very grateful that I have an artistic practice, a film art practice, because if I do have any time off, it means I can dedicate it to that practice.
Yes.
I don't really go from job to job. I'm going from a job to a project, to a pitch, to an idea seed with somebody else that we might meet up and work on. I kind of have long-term goals and projects, medium-term ones, short-term ones.
Yeah.
And it's not all crew every day. It's quite arty, actually. My life is full of these art projects that have moving image aspects or documentary aspects.
Yeah. Well, I said we met on the beach for the second Echo Relash film, which you've recently completed. And is it this weekend?
Monday night.
Monday night.
Acme, yeah.
Acme. Tell us about what the film is, what your connection with Second Echo is, and then we'll get to not what the film is about, but how you made that film. That would be really great.
Yeah, cool. Well, I have the absolute honor and pleasure to work with Second Echo Ensemble, which are just an amazing artist group based in Nicoluna, Hobart. And they are a radical group, as they say on their website. So I was brought in to the fold at Second Echo for a couple of months to put together a black and white absurdist analog film that spoke to a film from the past, 100 years ago, on track.
And so the decision for it to be analog, were you part of that decision, or was that decision already made?
That decision was already made. I think that's why
you got hired. Yeah.
And so I had a look at the original film and then listened to the incredible Kelly from Cawthorne's ideas. I think we went out, a few of us, with Sandy Sissel and Kay Farrell and Jack Cawthorne, and we had a meeting, and we all got very excited about the potential of this film. So I spent once a week over about 2 months. I shot with Second Echo, and every week we had a different location.
Yeah.
And they were incredible locations that really lent themselves to this absurdist fun. Like one of the rail track riders in Medina. That was such a great scene.
Yeah.
And everybody, the whole ensemble, were in these different little rail track. I don't know. It's tiny. You have to pedal your feet and go down the rail tracks. It's crazy, And you're shooting that at a 18 frames. You get that kind of Charlie Chaplin movement.
Yes.
And people are waving, and it's kind of erratic movement. And of course, the whole ensemble had fantastic black and white clothes on. We did a funny scene where it was absurd. There was a lot of deaths in this film. We tied somebody to the rail tracks and did that kind of comical death where you tie somebody to the rail tracks and you run them over in the rail cart.
Yeah.
So that's very cleverly done. And it was hilarious. And when I got to watch the rushes with the group, I mean, we were screaming at that point.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And we also went to places like the shot tower. You can imagine that really leaning into those kind of themes. We went to the roundabout down at the bottom of the Brooker Highway. Yeah, Hobart's all over that film.
Yeah.
So every week we went to a different location and played and experimented with ideas and approaches there as a group. I'd shoot a number of roles. So I kind of assigned a number of film stock roles.
Yeah. Yeah.
So each role, I'd shoot 100-foot rolls.
Yep.
Each roll is about 3 minutes. And so you have to be very conscious of, okay, we've got 30 seconds of that. And then if it's a really good shot, you're like, will I just do it again just to make sure we have it in the can? So you're always doing the numbers in your head.
This was what I witnessed from you and learned.
Yeah.
So when I recently shot a roll of 16 mil, I was like, okay, 15 seconds, little notebook. But you had Sandy with you, and Sandy was reading the lights, and Tom was Tom was.
We all did that together, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even yesterday I was shooting here with a photographer from South Australia, and we have our light meters. I have like 3 light meters, and I'm actually reading all 3 because you just want to make the best decision with what you're looking at. And if you're shooting in the middle of the day, which we were yesterday, and a lot of the time at Second Echo, the hours were 10 till 3.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'd have these searing hot days with lots of sun. And you're like, okay, you read Sandy's reading, and that's incredible backup for me, because I'm like, Sandy Sissle's got this. She's an absolute master. And would share what we each get and try to make a decision based on that.
Yeah.
But that's not the only variable, because if you take your stock back to your darkroom, there's other variables that affect exposure.
Yeah.
So you put the film into the tank, you put the chemicals in, it's got to be exactly 21 degrees for 7 minutes. But your film might be a little bit warm, or your film might be a little bit cold. Or did you heat the tank up properly? Or did your hand get stuck and you spent an extra 20 seconds?
Yeah.
And all these variables affect the exposure. Also, I shot on a reversal stock, but I developed it as a negative, and that also affected exposure. So all these variables, it's not just the reading. There's also the chemical process after. Yes. So I think no matter what I shoot, every time it comes out of the tank and I'm putting it on the dryer, I'm absolutely shitting myself. And I'm looking for contrast in the frames. I'm like, where's the image? Where's the image? Where's the image? Every time.
Tell me this, but is that the adventure? So you said you left education to embrace the adventure. It sounds like it's the risk.
I do like the risk.
Yeah, the reward.
Payoff.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, also, in education, you teach a lot about inquiry and curiosity, and following paths of curiosity to learn. And, there's only so many times you can tell that to kids before you realize actually you've got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not close to the idea of teaching again one day, but I felt like, I was saying something that I wasn't doing. I was teaching inquiry, but I knew that I had to go off and have my own inquiry.
Yes. But here's the thing, though. I think the best teachers show and don't tell. And just every time I mention your name to filmmakers or artists, like, people are like, wow, Ursula's amazing.
That is ridiculous.
No, seriously. And I'm really grateful to you because so Rachel Kell, who's on my team with me for another couple of weeks before she goes off to university. But you recommended Rachel come and work with me to gain some experience, but also, to help me with a project that I wouldn't be able to do on my own.
Yeah.
A film project. And I think what Rachel embodies, and maybe Tom as well, who I've met, I don't know very well, but
Thomas Woods, yeah.
Thomas Woods, sorry. And what I witnessed, when, I was learning from you while you were making that film on the beach that day.
Yeah.
Thomas's.
Tom, I always get it wrong. Sorry, Tom.
And then and Rachel, will go on set to learn from you, to see how you do it.
Yeah.
And I think, and one of the things that you said to me, I said, oh, look, I've got 3 rolls of 16mm film and a Bolex camera, and I haven't got a project. You said, just shoot it.
I think I said, like, why haven't you shot it already?
Yeah. But it's like, because you're just embracing the process.
Yeah.
And you're loving the process, and it's your vitality that then rubs off on us.
Yeah, I think like people are often too precious with film. I mean, I get it. We have to be conscious. We can't just shoot the hell out of it, But in a way, we need to if you want to get the results.
Yep.
And also to learn. If you just hang on to it, you'll never shoot anything perfect anyway. I don't shoot perfect.
No.
Which, could be a problem. But I think you just have to get in there and have a go. So yeah, I have the same approach with digital.
Yeah. This is what I wanted to get to, is how does that translate? Because again, an experience of my own with still photography was I was using a digital camera, having not shot film since the late 80s. And someone said to me, what you need to do is get yourself a Pentax K1000 or a Nikon FM2. The next day I was on eBay, I got a Nikon FM2 and a 35mm lens.
God.
And within 2 months I was on a processing course. And but what it was it got me away from this, there's this perception of there's a film look. But what it is if you understand how to work with light, you understand how a camera operates, so that then you can really advance your practice, whether it's digital or film.
Yeah, it's really important.
So what you've learned, what you continue to learn, and what you do with your analog practice, how does that inform your digital practice?
Well, hugely. My analog practice hugely informs my digital practice. I'm so grateful, really, because well, you're just mentioning there, first of all, it's so important to get your hands on the tools. And sometimes living on a remote island at the bottom of the world, it's hard because we don't have a hire house here, for example. So, I shot a horror short film for Rebecca Thompson last year. And I just hired a camera that I wanted to get more experience on. You use the job to get your hands on the tools because, at the end of the day, you turn it on, you frame it up, and you press record. Whether that was a beautiful Alexa LF. I've always wanted to shoot with one of those because that's what they're shooting feature films.
Yeah.
And I need to get my hands on the tools.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid of those cameras. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's just hire it. Let's just switch it on.
Yes. Yeah.
And what my analog world informs me is I do really think, I do feel like every frame is precious in a way because it's not infinite in analog. It's going to run out. So you got to make the most of, you do have to make the most of each frame. So I think that has made me a better shooter for sure. Because I'm not really into shooting heaps. I just want to shoot what I need.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crossover there. And a lot of the understandings around exposure and lighting. Like if you're shooting analog, you are just on your light meter all day. And you're adjusting settings all day. And your brain is thinking in f-stops and frame rate, and often like people who never shoot analog aren't really, and that's fine that they're not thinking about that, but I think that helps me to be a better shooter when it comes to shooting that short film.
Definitely.
Example.
Yeah.
Setting lighting, setting apertures, knowing exactly what that will give me looks wise. So one definitely feeds the other in such a nice way. Like I love to explore filmmaking with analog, and then it definitely directly feeds into my digital work.
Yeah. And I think so I recently shot a roll of 16 mil.
Yeah, 10.
I mean, it's so
it black and white or color?
It's color, and it's 3 minutes. Yeah. But yeah, the cost, the uncertainty of it coming out. And so we, in this day and age, we think of these things when there was a time before digital when that was the only technology. But there was a process. And I think that's what you've just alluded to, is that you don't want to shoot everything. With a digital camera, you could just keep rolling.
Totally.
And I made that mistake on a recent project where I have far too much now to edit down.
It's so overwhelming when you've too much.
Yeah, I've got a week's worth of imagery to condense down into a 5-minute film.
Yeah, and I love, like, if I shoot with film, you know, all the funny things that you learn through digital filmmaking, you realize they've come from the analog world. You know, there's lots of crossover and rehearsing things and just taking that little extra few seconds before buttoning on.
Yeah.
So that when you take all your work back to the edit, back to wherever it's going, when you hand that over or you do it yourself, that each thing has purpose. Because, you know, nobody wants to be sifting through hours and hours of data going, didn't need that, didn't need that. You know, if I'm handing over footage to a post house on the mainland, I want them to open every single frame and be like, that's usable, that's usable, that's usable.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm kind of thinking like that, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, last night we went through that 3-minute roll, and I reckon there's two scenes that are worth using, and that's fine because that's more than I was expecting.
Pretty good ratio.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, and again, but I think I guess I'm down this line of inquiry because there are so many people out there who want to experiment with film.
You should totally go for it.
Exactly.
And I do encourage 16 mil, and people often ask me, why not 8? And the reason I don't use 8, I mean, I do sometimes for fun, of course, and it's a great way to get started. But I think with 16 for me is that manipulation of exposure.
Yeah.
Right? 8mm cameras are generally all automatic. They're an automatic load and they're an automatic shoot.
Yeah.
The only thing you really change is the frame rate if it's modern enough that it has that option.
Yeah.
And with 16, you get to create more because you're in control of more variables. And it's a great teaching tool, actually. You have to understand more. And in that way, you learn. And also, the frame is twice as big. So if I want to scratch out frames, do some sort of strobing or masking or have a bit of fun with experimentation, it's much easier to work with a slightly larger frame. The 8mm is so tiny. I don't know if I can even use it in that way.
No.
But I mean, people do, and they do a great job. But yeah. Also, like, I can cross over. You know, I have a sort of a cinema grade 16mm camera that I could use to shoot a short film. And that's exciting. I hope to do that one day.
I mean, the perfect segue there. Thank you. When I arrived, you invited me into the kitchen, and there at your kitchen table, you have what are they called? Rollers, winders, of course. Yeah, and a roll of film.
Yeah.
What are you doing there? Please tell us.
Me. What am I doing there? Well, I am creating strobing effects on this film. So yeah, you have 3 minutes on your 100-foot roll. I reckon I've been working on that for 3 days. But I have a roll of film.
Yeah.
I shot a woman entering the water, all in slow motion. Just one thing is the whole film. And over that, I developed it as a negative, and I'm using masking tape to mask out certain frames. And I will develop it again and turn it into a positive. And then I'll remove that masking tape, and what's underneath is still a negative. So I'll have a positive, negative, kind of, I suppose, strobing effect all over this image of this woman entering the water. Now, I am working on a collaboration with 4 incredible artists who I met at the Adelaide Film Festival Expand Lab 2024.
Okay.
So that's a cool lab. I encourage anyone into moving image to just have a go at applying for that, because it was mind blowing. Went to Adelaide for about 10 days last year. I met some of Australia's finest moving image artists and directors and sound artists, all quite experimental. And we formed groups and pitched. We're pitching for a $100,000 commission with the South Australia Art.
Yeah.
So my group has been shortlisted to the final 3 or something.
Congratulations.
I know. So that's what's on the kitchen table is my strobing, because I'm trying to make it. Now, whether we get the pitch or not, I don't know. But this is the world. This is the art life. Like, we're pitching all the time. And I've put so many hours and weeks and days, Zoom meetings. In fact, 2 of the artists spent the last 3 days here with me at my house.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's a huge job, and we might not get the pitch, but I do think we'll probably make it work anyway. Maybe try and find the funding somewhere else.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And so I think that sort of leads us to the idea of community. There's a Tasmanian film community. It's not just...
I reckon they're the best film community in the world.
Really?
I love the Tasmanian film community.
And Australia-wide as well. I mean, that's about, you're making connections. Yeah.
You know, and you know people all over Australia. I'm a member of the ACS Tasmania, the Australian Cinematographer Society, and they are hugely supportive and help. Like, they run workshop days where I can get on a dolly. I took Rachel along to one. I was like, just get on the dolly. Just get on the slider. That's a crane shot. Just get your hands on the tools so that that's what you got to do to learn.
Yeah.
You know, just get your hands on the tools, hire the cameras you want. The more experience, the better. Everything just turns on and off at the end of the day. You know, I like to think the whole industry is built on turning it off and turning it on again if you have a problem. Off and on again works 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talk about filmmaking as problem solving. You can't constantly. Yeah.
Oh, the frame can be so hard, you know? I mean, just light, especially when you've got multiple characters, different light sources, a movement of camera, where that's going to land. It's just mind-boggling how complicated it can be. It can also be simple, but it is quite tricky, you know?
So, I mean, that takes me back to like the day at the beach. It was quite an overcast day, and the light didn't shift a lot.
Yeah.
However, what I noticed was, so I spent maybe 6 to 8 hours standing behind the 3. It was a long day.
Yeah.
I reckon we were there 6 hours at least.
Yeah.
And we did have a lunch break and so on. But you were constantly on the go. I was in awe of just
of that.
Yeah, because you're directing, and you're liaising with Kelly, and the whole crew. I think I sort of wanted to try to get to the idea of crew before, but it's you as an individual doing this work, and clearly it takes a lot of energy to keep doing this. As you said, you're not just making, you're pitching, it's everything before, during, and after.
The emails I can't cope with. I just want to shoot every day. Anything, honestly. I really do.
Okay, yeah.
So, it does require a lot of energy. But I absolutely adore that.
So I've got a red hot tip about email.
Oh, go on.
The less you send,
they get used to it.
The less you receive.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty good tip, except that usually all the jobs are coming in by email. I don't know. I'm in this zone of, I don't know. I haven't had a day off for a while, maybe. I have one tomorrow.
But so I only share that because based on what we've been discussing, I would just, there's so much you've shown us, you've described for us your darkroom, described for us your practice and how you work with that film. But for anyone who, like me, just playing around and probably not little bit nervous to play around too much, or like my still photography practice slipped a bit because I got busy with Curate Create.
Yeah.
What would be your red hot tip, your advice to anyone wanting to get into cinematography?
Yeah.
And particularly this sort of, well, no, I won't go down any particular route, please.
I don't know. I was saying to my friend yesterday, the analog film teaches you acceptance. You just accept what's on the frame a lot of the time. It's a moment in time. It was your choices in that moment. And there is a certain beauty to it, whether you use it or not. I think that teaches me I think you have to keep trying things. I also think you really need to try things with friends. I think community and collaboration really helps. It's just motivating, and you learn from doing, but you learn from sharing.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's quite hard to make any film alone. I've made a few. They're pretty boring to watch. I like certain elements, but community, I've got great friends and supporters and people I can reach out to and ask a question.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about. And I think there's great rewards in that, the sharing of the making with other people. That's my red hot tip,
Thank you.
Just get a friend, get a camera, and go and make something together.
Yeah, it's they say never work with children and animals, right?
Oh my God.
So my best friend, Bjarni, he really doesn't like me pointing my iPhone at him. So imagine trying to capture him on a Bolex.
Yeah.
So that is one of the reasons why I'm not shooting those rolls of film. I have plenty of friends, but I don't go out and ask them. So I'm going to do that now.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, hey, why don't we make a film about?
Yeah. Something.
And yeah.
Even if you're going together and they're supporting you with, I always say to people, can we get an assistant on that job? The production value is double.
Yes.
If it's not you struggling on the side of the mountain in the rain, just going, what am I even doing this for? Just having a small group to come up with ideas and bounce off each other, even if they tell you things you don't like, then you know what you don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very grateful for my screen community, Taz, and also the art community. And places like Second Echo Ensemble, Constance, these are putting on great shows all the time. And it's a great way for artists to collaborate and work together. Last year, I was very fortunate to work on a shoot with Nathan Maynard and Adam Thompson. Wrote a beautiful script called it's Moonbird, and it'll be on SBS later this year. And we spent a month out on Great Dog Island shooting a narrative for SBS, and I was the camera operator on that show. And living on Great Dog Island and working on a script for almost a month just taught me so much about collaboration, payoff, hardship, and total joy of making this story that I think everybody should watch when it comes out.
Thank you. Where is Great Dog Island? Great
Dog Island is next to Flinders Island.
Yeah.
And so you have to fly to Flinders and then ask someone to give you a lift
and
boat over.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. We slept in tents.
Yeah.
It was all very,
A lot of mutton birds.
Probably 500,000 mutton birds. We lived with the birds. We carried huge, beautiful cameras and lenses on stretchers across the sandy tracks. I was very strong.
Other podcast guests have talked about the value of a residency. Maggie Jeffries particularly talks about this. So that's what you had a month away to get.
I was with 36 other people.
36.
Yeah, working on a show.
But that's the thing, is you have no distractions. And for now I know where Great Dog Island is. I'm picturing just how...
It's stunning.
Yeah.
Tussocks. Just where the birds live.
Yeah.
But it was also the learning of what it takes to shoot a show like that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my own strength. I've been going to the gym ever since.
Yeah. Okay.
I need to be stronger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to carry cameras all day.
Yeah, I suppose that's the point with the energy, right? Is you can have the enthusiasm, but the body needs to. Yeah, that day when I was on set and you said, "Hold my camera a minute," and I actually, I wasn't expecting to be as heavy as it was because you made it look easy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you did.
I wonder how heavy that camera is. That's a heavy camera.
Yeah, I reckon there's 10, 15 kilos, I reckon.
Probably. And it's on your shoulder most of the day. You
know? And you just made it look so easy.
Yeah, so the body does, you know, you have to look after yourself physically and mentally and just have fun. If you're not having fun, maybe you need to change department. Try sound. Hey, look. boom looks lighter. Although it's awkward to hold.
Isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Look, Ursula, thank you so much for sharing. I look forward to seeing the show come out on SBS. Yeah, that sounds really awesome. And so you mentioned working with Rebecca. That was Green, which
Green with Envy.
Green with Envy.
She's won awards all over the world.
Yeah,
she's done amazing with that film.
So people need to go out and find that one.
It's not online yet because it's still. I think it's showing in India at the end of this month in some fabulous festival over there. So it's not quite online. Green with Envy.
And it's important to do the festival circuit.
It's really important, especially if you want to make a feature film. You use your short film to gain traction to get the next fund to go bigger.
Yeah.
So the festival circuit's very important for directors and talent and all crew that are involved. Really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Vivian Mason talked about Handmade Happiness, and that's now on YouTube. So distribution is really important. That's a subject for another time.
Yeah.
But certainly, So you mentioned feature film. Is that something you want to be doing?
Definitely. I'd love to have one in the can by the end of the year, but who knows what will happen.
Love it.
And digital, of course. I mean, I don't know. I got to keep practicing. Keep practicing with the Bolex.
But Ursula, thanks. Yeah, you're an inspiration to me, and I'm sure you've inspired so many of our listeners. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and your enthusiasm.
Thanks for visiting. Just glad the dog didn't.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to have Juno with us.
So thank you, Tim. Thanks very much.